Hello, this is Keith Folk from the Joliet Public Library Digital Media Studio. I am the supervisor of the Digital Media Services Supervisor. I'm here today with Joe Belman, veteran, and I'm very happy for him to be here. Joe is a friend of the library and I appreciate him coming in. So I was going to ask Joe to please tell us his full name, today's date, which is August 11th, and the general location. So your name, today's...
My name is Joseph Belman. This is April the 11th.
August the 11th, 2017.
2017.
And we're at the Joliet Public Library in Joliet, Illinois. All right. First question is, where and when were you born?
I was born in February 20th, 1924.
And where were you born?
In Pontiac, Illinois.
Who are or were your parents, and what were their occupations?
I really don't remember my parents or know their full name, really, because I was an orphan at 3 years old when my mother died. My father died in 2 years later, and I never knew neither one of them. So I knew their name was, the father was Francisco Carrillo, and my mother was named Maria Flores.
Who are or were your siblings? Names and genders?
I do know that I had three sisters and a brother. My sister was named Josephine. My other sister was named Eleanor. And my third sister, I really can't remember her name. And my brother was named Manuel.
Thank you. Did any of them serve in the military?
No.
What were you doing before you entered the service?
Before I entered the service, I did off in all the different job situations. I was a farm worker for a while, and actually my main job was working on I also worked on the railroad. My main job was working on a boat. I worked on a steamship, Alexander Mackenzie, which floated up and down the Mississippi River between St. Louis and Minneapolis, Minnesota. It carried coal up and down the river and stopped at all the electrical stations on the way up, delivering the coal, and on the way back, picking up the empty barges.
Oh, interesting. Okay. In which branch of the military did you serve?
I actually served in the Army, the United States Army, and which actually I ended up in the Army Air Force on that.
Did you enlist or were you drafted?
I was drafted.
What happened when you departed for a training camp and during your early days of training?
Well, I entered the Army in April 3rd, 1943, and I ended up going to Jefferson Barracks for basic training.
Do you recall your instructors and what were they like?
No, not really. It's been a long time since they were around, and I do know that they were pretty rough.
Do you recall, did you receive any specialized training? If so, what?
Yes, I did. I ended up, I first went to radio school at Camp Crowder, Missouri, after I finished basic training. I ended up learning to type and receive Morse code at 8 words a minute when I graduated from there.
Well, 8 words a minute in Morse code, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Then from there, I went to a redistribution center at Wichita Falls, Kansas. No, Wichita Falls, Texas. And I was redistributed from there to Buckley Field for armament training. I ended up going through my armament training for 3 months at Buckley Field, Colorado, and Denver. From there, we went to training on the airplane, training to be a military gunner on a B-17 at Kingman, Arizona, for a couple of months there, for about a month there, and then from there on we went to another redistribution center where we picked up a crew for to be an aerial gunner on B-17.
And what kind of armament did you train in? Do you remember?
Well, we were supposed to learn how to shackle bombs and put them on airplanes, and also the 50 caliber machine gun, which was used on a B-17.
So how did you adapt to military life, including all the physical regiment and the barracks, the food, the social life? How was military life for you?
Well, actually, it was probably no different than anything else that I experienced before. I took orders and I followed the orders, and actually the discipline was rough because of the fact that that was the object of being in the military. They wanted to discipline you to a fine-tooth comb, I guess, and marching, and that was kind of strange because I never did it before, but I adapted to it just like any other soldier probably did.
All right, so now we're going to talk about the wartime service. So this was during World War II, and where did you serve?
Well, from the United States, I went to, after gunnery training, I went to aerial training, which aerial and gunnery training at Sioux City, Iowa, where we picked up a crew and ended up with a crew of 10. 4 officers and 3 aerial gunners. I ended up being a ball turret gunner. I went over as a ball turret gunner. And I picked up a boat at, I don't remember the field in there, but we left from New Jersey anyway, on a boat overseas to Liverpool.
Since you served abroad, did you have any fond memories of the experience in Europe?
I have a few that I can relate to. After ending up at Liverpool, we went to Shelveston Field in I guess it was a small town named Ruston, which was right outside of about 90 miles from London. And we started flying our missions from there. At the time that I arrived there, I arrived there with 10 as a crew, but it was cut down to 9 at that particular time. I don't know the reasoning for that, but we ended up with 4 officers and 5 aerial gunners, which we had a ball turret gunner, a waist gunner, upper turret gunner, a tail gunner, and a radio operator. I ended up flying my first 8 missions as a waist gunner, and my biggest experience there was that we went on a mission to Cologne and bombed Cologne, and our airplane was hit with flak. We ended up losing 2 motors, and we were ready to abandon ship, but the pilot decided to go a little further on and try to get out of the enemy territory, which we did. We landed 2 miles on the other side of the front lines in the town of Liège, Belgium, and were forced down there and ended up with that experience at that time down there. Then we went on a mission for, I guess it was New Year's Eve, but we ended up with, I ended up as a ball turret gunner at that particular time, because the fellow that was a ball turret for a gunner for their plane ended up being shot and died. As a result, I had to take his place in the ball turret. So I ended up as a ball turret gunner for 24 missions after that. And one mission over Berlin, we lost a motor by 2 flak, and we ended up flying back and ended up at Lille, France, where we were forced down, and we left the plane there and came back. Then our crew ended up their missions there, but I ended up needing 3 more missions to go. As a result, I ended up flying 3 missions as a tail gunner. And one of the experience we had on there in my 34th mission, wire was shot down and was hit by my flak, and we ended up shooting straight up into the air, which we had to find the wire and tie it down to the engineer held on to it and tied it and got us back to level ground. We ended up making it back to our mission, our crew by that time. Then I ended up my 35th mission on another bomb run to Stuttgart, where we ended up coming back at the German border. We ended up with being shot at by some gunner down there who may have been the only one at that particular place there. I ended up at a tail gunning, and I experienced one shot. One of the black shots ended up on my right, another one ended up on the left, and I figured the third one would end up in the middle, so I really prayed an awful lot and laid down and covered myself up with a flak suit. Yeah. I made it back all right for my 35th mission, which ended up completing my tour of duty.
What kind of friendships and camaraderie did you form while you were serving, and with whom?
Well, I really had no opportunity for an awful lot of that, because as a crew, we ended up 10 people there. We ended up being very friendly, very cooperative in everything we did, and we thought of each other as a team. And that really was the only real friendships that I had when I was in service. I loved every one of them, and we ended up in good shape and came back and as a crew pretty good. Like I said, the only thing was missing was our ball charge gunner, who was killed earlier, and so that as a result, that was the only real friendships that I had friends at every camp that we went to, but really they were just no real friendships that we established during the period of time that I was in.
Wonderful. How did you stay in touch with family and friends back home?
Oh, I did an awful lot of writing to my friends and people back home, email and regular mail. And of course, that was the only way we had to be in touch. So I kept in touch with just about every friend that I had and every person that I knew pretty well down there. So that was no problem.
So what did you do for recreation or play when you were off duty?
An awful lot of drinking, an awful lot of smoking, and just a lot of fooling around, just like every other GI probably did at that particular time. We went out at every camp that I went to. Went out and bummed around and fooled around quite a bit.
So you did your 35 missions, which completed your tour of duty. And where were you when the war ended? The European War.
When the European War ended, I was home. I came home from overseas in March the 14th, 1945. The war was not over yet. So I ended up coming we ended up coming in from Southampton, England, to Fort Miles Standish in Boston. I got a 21-day furlough and was able to come home to Chicago at that particular time down there. I happened to be at home when the war was ended in Europe.
How were you received when you returned home by your family and friends?
Well, I hadn't been home at all that particular time, from the time I went in until I came back. So actually I was received pretty well down there. My family, friends, everybody. A few of the friends that were went into the service when I did were actually on leave at that particular time, so we were able to go out and I had 21 days of fun.
How did you readjust to civilian life?
That was no problem. I came back and I actually one experience that I experienced during the war when I came home was that I got discharged on October the 17th, and I was in Amarillo, Texas at the time. So they told me that they could discharge me there, or I could wait and come back to the States, to Illinois, and be discharged there. I preferred to be discharged immediately, so I got out and discharged in Amarillo, Texas. I decided to hitchhike home from there, even though I got paid for transportation and stuff like that. But I preferred to try to discharge to hitchhike home because I felt that I would be able to see some of the United States on foot or traveling that way a little bit better. So I tried that. And one thing I experienced, or one of the things that I experienced was I hitchhiked to Oklahoma City. On the outskirts of Oklahoma City, my ride let me off there, and I caught a bus to go across town to the other side of town in order to start hitchhiking again. When I caught aboard that bus down there, the bus driver, I went to the back of the bus and sat down, and he came back to me and he told me, he says, listen, he says, you don't have to sit back here if you don't want to. He says, only colored people sit back here. You can go up in front of the bus and sit in front if you want. Well, I had never experienced segregation of any kind before, so I really didn't know much about it. But I said I prefer to sit back here, so I sat in the back of the bus across town. On the other side of town, I got off the bus and I walked a little bit there waiting for a ride. And I seen a tavern up on top of the hill down there, so I decided to go up and have a beer. It was hot, and so I walked up there and went up and ordered a beer. Bartender tells me, he says, listen, he says, I can't serve you. I said, well, why? What's the matter? He said, well, he says, we don't serve Indians in this town alcohol. Well, that was the first there too. So I said, okay. I said, well, actually, I'm not sure. I'm not Indian. I said, I'm Mexican, and I guess I could have a beer if I wanted to. He said, yeah. Oh, he said, yeah. I said, I can serve you that. And then I said, well, no, I said, thanks anyway. I appreciate it, but I don't think I care for one now. I went back down to the road, hitchhiked a ride. A young lady picked me up. She must have been around 22 or something like that down there. And she had a baby next to her. Well, she picked me up, and I got in there, and I had a suitcase at that time with me, so I put the suitcase in back of the bus, in back of the car. Sat down with her and picked up the baby and put him on my lap. And we traveled about 15 miles or so. And she picked up 3 sailors. And we went another 5 or 10 miles, and they got off. And but I stayed on a little longer. Then finally she got to a place, and she says, well, she says, just as far as I can take you. She says, I live up on top there in a community up there. There's about a half a dozen of us living up there. And it's about 3 miles up the line down there, she says. So I have to go up the hill down there now. So I got off and gave her the baby back down there, sat her down. And I got out and closed the door, and she took off. And just as soon as she went up the hill down there, I thought, my God, my suitcase is in there. And I had all my discharge papers and my whatever money I had about $90 or so. So I had that left in there. And as a result, I was left with nothing. So there was nothing I could do. I was pretty damn disgusted. And a fella came, an old man and an old lady came up the road down there. And right away they picked me up. And the man said, what's wrong? He says, you look a little disgusted or something. I told him, I says, this young lady that gave me a ride down there, she had her car and went up the hill down there. And I left my suitcase in the back of the car down there. I says, I forgot to take it. And I said I had all my discharge papers and my money in there, so I'm really at a loss as what to do. He said, well, he says, come on in. He says, you say she lived 3 miles up the line there? I said, yeah. I said, well, come on, and we'll go up there and try to find her. And I'll be darned, we went up there, and there was a small community of maybe a half a dozen homes there or so. And her car happened to be in one of the stalls there, so I went up to it, and sure enough, my suitcase in the back. I knocked at the door, and I told her that I came back to pick up my suitcase, and I got back in the car down there, and the fellow took me about 45 miles up the road, further before I got into the car there, and he let me off. But I thought that was quite an experience with my hitchhiking down there. I learned 3 things that day, and one of them was that there was segregation in the States. Also, that the Indians did not get served at Oklahoma, and that there was really some good people in the United States when this old fella and lady were able to pick me up, and the young lady picked me up and gave me the ride down there. So that was it, and I got home about 9 o'clock. Well, it was actually almost the next day that I got a ride into home down there, and I ended up getting home at 9 o'clock. Well, it was about 9:30 at night. I walked in the house. We never closed the doors at that time or anything like that. So my mother was asleep, my young sister was asleep, so they didn't even know I got home. I just got in there and I went on the couch, went to sleep, woke up next morning, and I was home.
Wonderful. How did your wartime experience affect your life?
I really do not think that they affected my life at all.
Okay. Were there any life lessons you learned in the military?
Well, the discipline in the military was pretty strict, and I did learn discipline. I could I disciplined myself. I mean, focus on the way people work, and I was able to establish a lot of functions that I wouldn't have had any otherwise. I could maybe discipline myself, really, in different cases. I disciplined myself when my drinking, I was able to establish it and get rid of it. Got my last night of drinking when in 1946, New Year's Eve, went out and celebrated, and then from then on, I have not touched alcohol, cigarettes. About a couple of years later than that, I stopped that. I was able to discipline myself in doing that. So I did end up fairly well established that way.
What message would you like to leave for future generations who will hear and view this interview?
Well, I would say that they should love their country. There's an awful lot of things that it has done for you. There's no country in the world like it, as far as I could see. And I would advise everybody to take care of it, make sure that it continues on the way it is for the rest of their lives. I appreciate it because all the freedoms are there, freedoms that are not in different places. They don't come easy, and they're not established easy, so you have to protect the establishment that you have.
Is there anything you would like to discuss that we didn't cover earlier? Something, something you experienced that you think is important for this interview?
Well, I think the welcome home situation would be one of the things down there. You hear about it now because of the Iraq War and stuff like that. Soldiers coming home and being greeted in a very nice way. They were more or less treated nice anyway when they come home. When I came home, I didn't have that. And I believe this here thing that you have nowadays is honor flights, I guess they call them. They are welcoming most World II veterans, and I got that trip. I got to come home, and I got to go on it, and it's a very nice trip. And it takes you on a flight to Washington, D.C. Takes you to see all the monuments of the different wars that they have now. It brings you back to a welcome home that is really out of this world. When I got off of the plane, when I came back, an honor guard met you at the gate down there, and they took you down the whole length of the airfield almost, and they had bagpipes, and they had different people marching in front of you. Somebody took you on a wheelchair down the front of the flight, and you had all your relations, and they were all told about this here flight. I didn't know that they had been, and as a result, I ended up with grandchildren and children. I had a whole bunch of people greeting you, and then they took you to a flight of about 1,000 people at the place greeting you. So it was really something. It's hard to explain the feeling that it gives you about being a GI that I never had before.
Wonderful. What organizations do you belong to, military organizations today?
Belong to the VFW, American Legion, and the American GI Forum. Of course, I don't participate in half of their meetings, but I do belong to them.
And they know you're there.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thing you would like to discuss?
Well, I'd like to thank the VFW and the Veterans Administration for the job that they do as far as taking care of the soldiers nowadays. I guess there was some problem with them before down there, but actually I've been treated well with them, and as a result, health-wise and every way, it's been a plus.
So, well, Joe, again, thank you. It's always a treat to have you here. We're also doing interviews with you and your family, but I really appreciate you coming down for this Veterans History Project interview. And I want to, again, thank you, and have a great day.
Sounds great.